I have a little, I'm going to put this thing on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah.
Say your name and count to 10 for me.
Ron Crowder. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And I had my telephone off on. Okay. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the status of HIV and AIDS in Nashville. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the status of HIV and AIDS in Nashville, a longtime fighter of HIV and AIDS in Nashville, Mr. Ron Crowder. And many of you might recall that Mr. Crowder has been with us not only on many other shows, but he also is the founder of a very, very important anti-HIV AIDS organization called StreetWorks. And Mr. Crowder, let me welcome you to the show this morning and to tell you how delighted we are to have you and to tell you how glad we are to have you in this seat, because it's been quite a number of months since we've had a good HIV AIDS show. And some folks are saying that HIV and AIDS might be disappearing or whatever. So let's talk about first about you and your background, and then by perhaps the second segment we'll get into the status of AIDS. But more than anything, let's talk about Ron Crowder first.
Okay, as you said, I'm Ron Crowder. I'm the founder and the CEO of StreetWorks. StreetWorks is a nonprofit agency that's been around for almost 20 years. We started in '97. We have 3 locations in Nashville. 2 of them are located in public housing, the Casey Homes in East Nashville and Tony Sudicum Homes in South Nashville. We do free HIV testing. We do free hepatitis C testing. We provide a multitude of direct support services for people living with HIV and people who are actively using drugs. So we work, and the name comes because we work the streets. We work the streets a lot at night to prevent new infections of HIV and hepatitis C. We work the streets to interact with people who are actively using drugs and to try to do some type of intervention with them, and if necessary and whenever they get ready, we help them get into treatment.
And so, Mr. Crowder, we know you, and as we said, you were one of the first HIV/AIDS persons that we recall being able to talk to about that disease, and you, since that time, not only have you grown the organization, but you've grown your influence throughout this nation in terms of what AIDS is and the status of AIDS. And what we'd like to do today is to have you to give our audience as much information as you possibly can about the status of HIV and AIDS in American society in Nashville. And then we'll dedicate ourselves to that proposition for the rest of the show.
Okay. So right now, HIV and AIDS, we can see an end to AIDS now. An end to AIDS is in sight now. There are cities, particularly New York, has a plan called End AIDS by 2020. So they actually have a plan of ending AIDS by 2020. Nashville doesn't have a plan yet, but with all of the new interventions and the new treatments, we can see HIV and AIDS ending. You know.
Well, you know, I think when you first came to us, Mr. Crowder, that was several years ago when this was a real disease and people were having all kinds of problems in reference to it. It's strange that you can now say that within the next 4 years, because I think at one time we thought that this would be something that would be with us forever and ever, but you mean that the technology and the drugs and et cetera have come to such a point that we can talk in a real sense and be serious about saying that 4 or 5 years from now we might see the last person to be afflicted with this disease.
Yeah, an end is in sight. I can't say that realistically 5 years is going to be the end of it, but we do know that the end is in sight.
That it's not forever, as we thought for at one time.
Yes. Right now, HIV is more of a chronic illness than a death sentence as it was. Like, I can't remember the first time I came on your show, but I do know that the first time I came on the show,
that was in the 90s.
Yeah, HIV was still a death sentence. If you got HIV, you was gonna die with it.
That's right.
Now they treating HIV as a chronic illness, and what they are doing is, if they can get the viral load to undetectable, then your chances of transmitting the virus is slim and none. So a person who has HIV in an undetectable viral load, their chances of transmitting it to their sexual partner is slim and none.
Okay, and so what we're going to do, we're going to take our first commercial break, and we're going to be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.